Welcome back to Turnbuckle Trash Talk. We're going to have a very important conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
What makes the GOAT? What defines the greatest of all time? People actually ask us, who is the GOAT? And we have a variety of answers because I think there are a variety of categories that the GOAT can be defined in. Some would say the greatest of all time technically is Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Some would say the greatest of all time character-wise is Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think it's too hard to say because what makes it the greatest of all time? What are your thoughts?
Man, the GOAT, like you said, man, it can go many ways. I think really in this sport of pro wrestling, there cannot be one GOAT. There really can't because there's categories to it. I hear all the time people talk about Bruno Sammartino, and I've never watched one of his matches.
But he was one of the most popular wrestlers in his time.
And I'm not
selling out
away.
Madison Square Garden.
He was.
He had an 8-year title reign.
Yep.
Like,
I tried to get one through. I lied. I tried getting through one of his matches, but it was the old school matches, and I ended up just changing the channel, whatever. But it's like you said, man. It just is different. You gotta specify things. You know, you gotta be very specific when you're asking who's the GOAT. People say Chris Jericho's the GOAT, you know? And I can agree with that on different terms. Maybe depends on what we're talking about. Macho Man being the GOAT. Okay, let's pick into these little these niches. You know, these people, everybody coming up with all kinds of answers for the GOAT. You know, but let's dive in. Let's dive in. Let's take a swim.
I think you're right. I think there's a whole bunch of categories to consider.
Yeah.
When you're determining who the greatest of all time is. It's not the same in sports.
Right.
In sports, you can rely on things like championships, on wins, losses,
record,
on
points per
pass
game,
percentages, or points per game, or anything like that. There is a more statistical way to determine that because who they are character-wise doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
They could be the biggest jerk or asshole on the court, but if they're putting up numbers and they're winning championships, who's to argue with that? Some say LeBron James is the greatest of all time in basketball. Some say that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time in football.
Yeah.
Like, they have statistics to back that up.
They do.
But in wrestling, you don't really have that because wins, losses don't necessarily matter. How many championship reigns versus how long those championship reigns are.
Yeah.
That's kind of a consideration.
It's really
character work, promos.
It's easy to say that when it comes to the GOAT in pro wrestling, like you said, championships don't matter. It really doesn't. Wins and losses don't matter. It's the impact you had in the sport. You know, I yelled about this a little bit ago. Just the impact you have and the mark that you leave in the sport. You know, you don't have to be the greatest. You don't have to have 16 title reigns, you know, to be the GOAT. We can challenge ourselves right now to think of somebody who could be the GOAT that really wasn't the top dog and won so many titles. You know, I would say Curt Hennig could be a GOAT.
Curt Hennig could be a GOAT. Yeah.
He was limited to his title runs. Granted, he was limited also to his career because he passed away at a young age. But there's a lot of guys out there, man. It could be argued. It's
like they ask, who's your Mount Rushmore of wrestling? I'm like, you have to pick a specific period.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you were to say, who is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling in the 90s, I would probably say Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock.
Mankind's going on there.
Mankind would probably be on there. And probably Hogan, NWO Hogan or something like that. Like, it's so hard.
It is, man.
Because there's so much to consider.
It's not fair. That is not a fair question.
It's not a fair question.
Yeah, you can't even...
You can ask me who my favorite wrestler is. And even then, I'll probably have a handful of choices.
Yeah, I would have to say, who are my top 5 guys?
And
not
even
in
then,
order.
It would be in order.
Like,
you can't say specifically. It's all about preference and taste. And that's something that wrestling is really good at, is dividing their audience up into different preferences and tastes. Whereas in football, it's like, well, I like my team.
Exactly.
You know, I like the team that I root for.
Right.
But, like, that doesn't determine the sport as a whole.
Oh, that's the truth, man. I mean, because, okay, look, Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes is right now, and it saddens me, you know, that a lot of people try to and I don't even know how to explain this. They take advantage of someone's death, and now you kind of want to back them up because they passed away, and everyone wants to jump that bandwagon type of deal, you know?
Yeah.
But Cody or Dusty Rhodes can be considered the GOAT. Why? Go to the locker room that people that have worked with him and ask them. They can tell you why he is the GOAT to them. In our case, we don't see it, you know? Unfortunately, we know him as the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, who back in the days was a champion, you know, and he was a big deal. But then, you know, he like died out in our eyes.
Well, that's
Look
like
from the outside.
the G.O.A.T, the greatest trainer of all time, or the greatest teacher of all time.
Yeah.
Like, you really do have to break it down beyond those 4 letters.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you can't say for sure.
Exactly.
And even then, it's just an opinion.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
really is just an opinion. Like I said, in other sports, you have statistics to back it up. In wrestling, you really don't.
No.
Because if we were to say, okay, Stone Cold Steve Austin is the greatest of all time, based on what?
Yeah.
He's had like a third as many championships as John Cena.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's had like a 10th the reign that Bruno Sammartino had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many things
It's too many factors.
to say.
Yeah.
So I think what we are saying,
Yeah.
I think the way I could sum this all up is
There's no GOAT.
there's no point in asking the question.
Yeah, there's no GOAT.
There is never going to be a GOAT in wrestling.
There really isn't. Who are your top guys is a different
Absolutely.
question. You can ask me that all day, but there is no there.
And you're asking who are your
My
top
opinion
guys,
is completely
not
different from anyone
who
else.
are the
Yeah.
top
And it depends
guys.
on what era you grew up in, man. Because I can argue with another guy who's maybe 10 years older than me or 10 years younger than me, and we're going to have different opinions. And we'll feel strong about him because I didn't live in that era, man. Just like, same concept goes with music, too. Oh, who's your favorite, let's say, rapper? Oh, well, Tupac was the greatest. And people nowadays say somebody else is the greatest because they're growing up on them, and that's what they learned, you know, and that's what they listen to. So it's just different. What you grew up on and what you learned and what your mind, you know, was just absorbing throughout your prime, you know, your childhood and stuff like that, and where you were absorbing everything. So that's why in my case, like if somebody argued, I would say Stone Cold. I would, you know, just because I grew up on him, you know. I could say Hulk Hogan, but I would not say Hulk Hogan because I feel like Hulk Hogan is the New York Yankees of wrestling. You know, that's the bandwagon. You know, everybody likes him, but you don't want to like him because everybody likes him. So you kind of stay off of it. But it's just too many, way too many, man, way too many.
Yeah,
But-
so basically, it's synopsis. If
Yeah.
you think there's a GOAT, you might as well put him out to pasture because at the end, there is no GOAT. There's your favorite. There's my favorite. There's his favorite. There's everybody's favorite. But there will never be a greatest of all time
You heard it
in
here.
wrestling. You've heard it here first.
That's
Thank
it.
you guys so much for joining us on our exploration of what is the GOAT and what does it mean. We will see you guys next time.